If you're a Python developer and you work in VS Code, then you need to know about these simple yet powerful features. Bear with me for a few minutes and I promise you're going to get some value out of this video. Now the first thing we need to do is install the correct extensions. VS Code is very customizable and we can go to the extensions tab, the one that kind of looks like a few puzzle pieces right here. From here, we need to make sure we have the Python extension installed, which I imagine most of you already do. It's this big one here with 134 million downloads. And then after that, we're going to install the Jupyter extension. The Jupyter extension is this one right here, and it provides support for Jupyter notebooks and also gives us a few additional features that we can use in conjunction with the Python extension. Now, the first feature we need to know about is the interactive mode. Now, a lot of times when you're writing Python code, you want to test a small portion of it without having to execute the entire script. Now, there's a great way to do that by adding the following comment above a section you want to test. So you can do a comment, then a space, and then 2% signs. When you do this, it's going to create a Jupyter Notebook cell for you directly in your Python file. Now, obviously, this only works if you're with a .py extension, but what I can do here is press on Run Cell. When I do that, it actually opens up something known as the interactive window, and it will run this entire cell just like it would run a cell within a Jupyter Notebook. But the best part is, now this code is kind of loaded into memory, and I can start interacting with it from the interactive window. So here I can use add numbers, and I can add numbers, 1 and 2, and press run, and then I'll get my result, and it will print out right here. Now we have the ability to save this notebook if we want to do that, to export it, etc. By the way, this export feature is actually something that I built when I was working at Microsoft, so fun fact. But the point is, you have this interactive window, it's super cool. You can also just write normal Python expressions and have it directly beside your code. Now obviously we have the abilities to run all of the cells below this particular cell. We can create different cells, but this is a great feature and definitely something you need to know about. Now before we move on to the next feature, I want to share something else that's pretty powerful with you, and that's one of the software development courses that I have with Course Careers. Now, if you guys are looking to become a software engineer and you really want to take this seriously, consider joining the program. We've already helped a lot of people land jobs even in this difficult market, and we teach you everything you need to know to actually stand out, as well as help you fine-tune your resume, your portfolio, and really walk you through step-by-step what you actually need to do to land a job in today's market. We have an entire free introduction course which you can sign up for from the link in the description, and I look forward to seeing you guys there. Now the next feature to look at is docstring generation, and this one will involve installing another extension. So let's go to the extension tab and we're going to type auto docstring like that, and make sure docstring is one word. Now the top extension you see here is the one that I'm talking about. You can see it has over 10 million downloads, and this is something that can really quickly generate docstrings for you and just make your life a little bit easier. So what I'm going to do is click out of this, and I'm going to go to a code example that I have here. Now in order for this to work, you just need to install the extension and then go below a function or a class or anything that you want to document using a docstring and simply type 3 quotation marks. Now when you do this, you should see the generate docstring popping up. You can simply press on that or just click enter, and it will automatically generate a docstring for you. Now it doesn't fill everything in because obviously you need to write the summary and the descriptions yourself, but it will automatically pick up any type annotations that you've defined. It will specify this in the correct format like args and returns, and it just really quickly kind of stubs this for you so you know how to write the docstring correctly, and you can quickly write the important stuff like the descriptions and the summary. Docstrings are a great way to document your code in Python, especially if other people are going to be using it, and this is a cool extension that can help you do that a little bit faster. Moving on, the next tip I have for you is configuring Pylance. Now Pylance is the default language server for Python. That means that it provides all of the IntelliSense as well as things like type checking, and it's actually very useful. Now you may not even know this, or you may never have configured it before. Whenever you're writing code and you don't have something special like GitHub Copilot installed, you're going to get some type of IntelliSense. For example, you can see if I try to do A plus, it's showing me kind of B, the variable here, and you get all of this stuff popping up on the screen. Now Pylance is what populates that, but Pylance is also what can provide a lot of other cool features that you need to configure. So what we're going to do is first of all make sure Pylance is installed by simply typing Pylance in the extensions marketplace. Now here you'll see that it pops up. It's usually installed with the Python extension, but just make sure you have it installed. Next, what we're going to do is go to the settings here. So we're going to click on the settings gear and then settings. From here, there's a lot of different options, but we're going to search for Pylance, and let me make this a little bit larger. Now, once we search for Pylance, we can click directly on the Pylance extension, and we can scroll down, and I'm going to highlight a few extensions that you want to be aware of, and keep in mind you can search for these directly. So you can go through here, and there's probably some ones that you might want to change, but what I want to go to is the following, so let's try to find it here. Okay, so first is analysis. So what we can actually do is we can enable function return type hints. Now this means that without us having to manually write these hints, Pylance can automatically populate them. So I'm going to enable this one, and I'll show you what it does in 1 second. Now we also have PyTest parameters. You can enable that if you want. And then I am going to add the inline hints for variable types. Now this is pretty much just automatic type annotation for you, so that when Pylance knows what a type should be, it will show you what that is, just to make your life a little bit easier when you're writing code. Now there's a few other things that we'll want to enable here. For example, the type checking mode. So Pylance actually has the ability to do static type checking. That means that it can tell you if variable types that you're using are compatible or not, and give you kind of some hints in the editor so you know if you're using the correct code to avoid errors. Now this is similar to what happens in statically typed languages like Java or C++ or Go, but you can enable this in Python. So what you can do is go to the type checking mode, and you can change this to basic, strict, or standard. Now I typically use standard, but you can make this strict if you want to get all of the different type checking hints, or you can make it basic if you want to avoid some of the maybe common ones that you don't want to see. Anyways, let's go with standard. You can mess around with the mode if you want. Okay, so now once I go back into my code editor, notice that things look a little bit different. First of all, you can see that Pylance is now telling me what the return type from this function should be. And if I double click on this, it actually automatically adds it for me. Now I can just leave it here in gray as kind of a hint, or I can double click it to add. But the way that this works is because I've already annotated some of my variables. So since these are annotated, Pylance is able to infer what the type of specific functions will be, what the return types are, etc. And that really helps me when I'm writing code, especially if this is a lot larger and I'm using code from multiple files. Now notice we're also getting a red underline under this 5. Now previously when we had the type checking mode on none, we didn't have that because it wasn't checking the types of variables. The reason why we're getting 5 is because when I try to call the add numbers function, we have 2 ints. But this here is a string. So Pylance is telling me that this is incorrect, and if I try to run this code, I'm going to get an error. So that means I should change this to a 5, and then you can see that type checking goes away. So this is super useful. I typically enable this whenever I'm working, especially on a larger project, and even though it can be a little bit annoying with some of the hints that it gives you, overall I think it's productive, and it does help you solve a lot of common errors, especially where you're mismatching types, which happens a lot in Python. Now we're moving on to one of my favorite features, which is LiveShare. Now to access the LiveShare feature, I believe there is an extension, although it might already be installed by default. Regardless, you can go to the extensions tab and then type LiveShare. Now again, I think it's already installed by default, but if it's not, you can simply install it. And this allows you to actually share your code editor as well as your terminals and pretty much your entire environment with someone else and have them collaborate with you at the same time. Now, unfortunately, I can't demonstrate this feature to you because I don't have another laptop with me, but the way it works is like this. You can press on the LiveShare button on the bottom left-hand corner. You can also go to the command prompt, which is Command, Shift, and then P. This is where you can access a bunch of different commands. So for example, I can type LiveShare like this, and I can start a session, so start collaboration session. Or I can go here, mine is kind of hidden in these 3 dots, and click on LiveShare. It's something that should pop up in the left-hand side bar, and I can share with read-write mode or read-only, or I can join a session. So for example, I'll share in read-write mode. So now that I've started the session, I can invite people to it. I can do that by pressing on this right here, which will copy the invitation link, or I can go here to where it says shared. I can press on invite others and simply send them a link, and then they're actually going to have access to the file that I'm currently inside of, as well as any other ones that I have in this project. And we can do things like start a discussion directly on a line of code that we have. We can have 2 people coding in the same editor at the same time, and then I can actually share with them my terminals. Now in this case, I'm sharing with them read-only mode so that they're not able to execute any commands, but there's so many different features here, and this is so useful, especially when you're trying to teach someone something or you want to show them something without having to maybe copy over a code snippet or send them a video. This I find is just a lot more productive, and I'm planning on using this in some upcoming videos where I actually tutor some of you guys. Anyways, with that said, I am going to wrap up the video here. If you enjoyed, make sure to leave a like, subscribe, and I will see you in the next one.